Yeah, don't worry about it.
We lost yours for a second.
Hey everyone, this video is a tutorial in how to use ProdCom. We're going to walk through the setup and we're also going to walk through the app interface itself and hopefully answer any questions you have about it. So let's get started. So you only need two things to run ProdCom. You need a Mac and you need an audio source. You'll also need just a temporary internet connection to download the ProdCom app from the App Store and to download the necessary speech assets in Mac OS, but ProdCom does not need an internet connection to operate. When it comes to the Mac you use to run ProdCom, it needs to have an Apple Silicon processor, and for the best experience, you're going to want to be running the most up-to-date version of Mac OS. ProdCom will not run on anything earlier than Mac OS 13. It's important to note that Intel-based Macs will run the ProdCom app, but they're going to be highly inefficient because they don't have the neural engines that the Apple M-series processors have, and those are what really drive the speech component of ProdCom. Getting audio into ProdCom is really straightforward. So when you connect any Mac-supported audio interface, it'll show up instantly and be available to use as a device in ProdCom. So this also includes network drivers like SoundGrid, Dante Virtual Sound Card, merging virtual audio driver, and even virtual interfaces like Loopback and Pro Tools Audio Bridge. So the takeaway is that as long as your interface shows up on your Mac, it's going to work in ProdCom. All right, let's say I'm a monitor engineer and I want to use ProdCom to give me transcripts of all of my band's talkback mics, my front of house and tech shout mics, and even our radio channel. I've just downloaded ProdCom from the App Store and launched it for the first time, and I see a blank interface. So it turns out we're already multi-track recording off the monitor desk using an MGB. Let's go ahead and add our first channel in ProdCom. Just like a channel on our audio console, we're going to give our ProdCom channel a name. First up is our drum talkback. His favorite color is blue, but if we wanted to choose a different color, we could select it here. And all that's left to do is to tell ProdCom where to find the audio for the drummer's talkback mic. The device list here is a real-time inventory of every audio device connected to the Mac, so if or when I/O changes, it will automatically update in this list. We're recording our entire stage rack and have kept all our routing one-to-one, so remembering that we patched this drummer's talkback mic into input number 1 in our stage rack, we'll find it here, Wave SoundGrid Channel 1. So once we patched our connection, we'll click Done, and you can see here that we've created our first ProdCom channel. Let's carry on and add another channel. This is going to be our bass talkback. And he really likes green, so let's change that for him here. And then we also know that he's coming in on channel 2. So this is going to be rinse and repeat until we have all of our band talkback channels landed in ProdCom. And lastly, for context of this video, let's go ahead and add our own talkback mic. So we'll call it Mon Talkback. Keep it low key. 6. Cool. So now we have all of our band talkbacks and our tech talkback and a monitor talkback landed in ProdCom. And as soon as audio starts hitting these channels, we will see transcription happening. So obviously I'm not at a gig with a console in front of me. So these are tracks playing back from a DAW that I previously recorded. So this is just emulating a live environment. But the problem is that we have to click around to everybody individually to see what they're saying. So what we need to do is we need to make a group. So go to add a group. And here we're going to call this group band. So these are our band guys. We can select the channels, the member channels individually, or we can just hit select all. We'll go ahead and remove our monitor talkback from there. And we're going to give it maybe a distinct color, to make it stand out a little bit. And then we have keywords down below. So when you put in a word or a phrase into this keyword list, it's going to be highlighted every time it's detected in any of the transcriptions that are in this band group. So since I'm a monitor engineer, I want to catch any potential mix changes someone might throw at me. So I'm going to put in words commonly used when someone's asking for a mix change. Stuff like mix, up, down, pan, panned. So you get the idea. So we'll go ahead and click done. And now when we go back to the left column and we click on the band group, we can see the entire conversation all together in order, and we can see exactly who said what and how long ago they said it. And it's really easy to follow along. All right, so now that we got our band sorted out, they're up and running here in ProdCom. Let's go ahead and add a couple random production inputs that could be really helpful to us if we are in the heat of the moment or in the middle of sound check and we might miss something important. So we're going to go ahead and add a channel just like we did earlier, and it's going to be radio channel 1. And then we'll make this different color. Let's make it orange, bright orange. And it's coming in with the rest of our audio like everything else over waves, and it's going to be on channel 7. So we finished that. Now let's go ahead and add another one. This is going to be our show caller, aka Boss Lady. And since this is a pretty important channel to follow, we will make it red. We'll go back and change our tech talkback color later. But a little curveball for you here. This audio is actually coming from comms. So completely outside of our monitor console MGB setup that we've already been working on, we've also connected this Mac to the comms Dante network with DVS. The comm engineer routed the show party line to me on Dante channel 10. So this is where we're going to pick up this audio. So this is cool because now we have a transcript of the show caller in real time, and we can track along with the event way easier, make sure we don't miss anything important, and we don't even have to have comms blasting in our mix. So we had our band group going, and that was working great, and then we added a couple more production channels, our radio channel and the show caller. So let's go ahead and reconfigure our band group to be an all group. So if you right click on band, select configure, and then we're going to go ahead and relabel this to be all, and then we'll add our channels in that we've made. And now we're back into the business of seeing all of our channels that we've created all in one location, one window. We've had our head down mixing monitors and making sure the band is all squared away, and we might have missed something on production radio channel. It says catering has moved. Take the elevator backstage right up to the concourse level. Well, if it wasn't for ProdCom, we would have missed lunch. So there you go. So in the instance of our show call party line, which is a pretty important line of communication, if we double click on their icon in the sidebar, it'll float a new window, and we can collapse the sidebar, we can resize the window, reposition it however we want. But basically, it's just a 24/7 view of whatever is going on that show call's party line or on Boss Lady's mic. So we can have that open, and then we can have our band group open or even our all group on the other window, and we can take the show call out of that if we want to, just so it's not doubling up. But that gives us like a very clear view and separation of like production and show call, and then also stuff coming at you from stage. This is also pretty handy if you have like a principal artist or somebody, you know, maybe your front of house shout mic, someone that you want to have eyes on all the time. All right, so let's say for whatever reason, show call on this gig is super important. They're going to be cueing you on some things, and you need to be zoned in to whatever your show call is saying. So if you go to Window in the menu bar, and then select Float on Top, it will pin that window to the top of whatever else could possibly be under it. iTunes, Smart, PA control software, recording, anything. So, and another functionality here is you can make it translucent. So if you wanted to get really fancy and you still wanted to see your RTA while you have an overlay of what the show caller is saying, you can do that with this translucent functionality. All right, let's close this window, go back to our main window. We're hungry. So we couldn't remember where catering is though. So let's go ahead and scroll back up on our window, find that radio message that tells us where catering is. There's the message. So you'll see a little jump to current icon appear at the bottom of the screen. The default behavior of ProdCom is to track with the most current text. Of course, you can break that tracking to go backwards in the timeline and read previous messages. But when you want to re-enable the tracking mode, just click on Jump to Current and ProdCom will flip back into that mode. Also at the top right of the window, you have two A's, a larger one and a smaller one, and these just increase and decrease the text size. The next icon we have here is an arrow pointing upward, slightly to the left. It has the exact same functionality as the Jump to Current button does. That shows up in the bottom center of the window when you scroll up and you break the tracking. It just re-enables the tracking for you. And then last but not least, we have the X. So this just clears the text, clears all transcriptions of the window that you're viewing. Now that we've covered the basics of ProdCom and how to set it up and really use the app, let's go ahead and take a look at some of the menu options we have and a couple other things you might find useful. So you'll find settings in the menu bar under ProdCom, and it's going to be Command comma for the true Mac users out there. So the first thing you see here under General, we have Appearance. So obviously light, dark mode, or you can follow the system. And then the next thing we have is Configuration. So think of configuration in ProdCom as like a session or a show file. This allows you to save and or load your work when you're back and forth between different artists or gigs, or quickly switch between different audio devices. When we click Select, you'll see the default configuration here is called New Configuration. So let's change the name by clicking on it to select it once, and then clicking on it again in the middle to highlight the text and be able to edit it. Let's change this to Artist A MGB, since MGB is our IO, and we'll click Done. So we've made our first config file. This is going to be what ProdCom launches into every day, and we're pretty much going to use it every day. But once in a while, we're on a different console, and instead of using an MGB and SoundGrid, we're fully using Dante. Now, the last thing we want to do, especially when we're in the middle of like load-in, is have to go in and manually change the audio device on every channel that we have. So what we'll do is we'll just create a new config based off of this current one with the updated audio device. So to do this, we'll go back to our configurations by clicking Select, and we'll duplicate the current config by clicking the copy sign here on the right. We'll rename this new config by clicking once to highlight and again to edit, and we'll just change the name MGB to Dante, and then we'll click out of the text box to save the text. Now we'll load the Dante config we just made, and we'll go back into each channel and change the device from Wave SoundGrid to Dante. Great. So now that we've just gone through all of our channels and updated the devices to Dante, let's go back and just check our work. Another way to access ProdCom configuration options is in the menu bar under File. So here you'll see we can quickly load our different configs. So let's jump back and forth between MGB and Dante and make sure everything checks out. One thing you might notice is that there's no save function in ProdCom. That's because the ProdCom app is persistent. This means that anytime you make a change to the ProdCom interface, you're automatically updating the current configuration file. This also means that ProdCom will load up exactly where you left off when you close and relaunch the app. Here's a quick example. Right now, you'll see that we're currently on the Dante config. So let's make the show call name stand out a little more by adding some exclamation points to the channel name. We'll do some in the beginning, and we'll do some at the end. Now, let's load our MGB config, and you'll see that the show call name changed back to where it was last time we used this configuration. And then we reload Dante again, and you see the exclamation points are back. Let's make our way back to the settings menu. There's still a few things we need to cover here. So if you look under speech processing, you'll see you have an option to select the language. The default is system setting, which if you see system setting or system as an option anywhere, like it shows in the appearance menu here, it just means that it's going to mirror whatever option that is set in Mac OS. If you need to deviate from whatever language your computer is running in and you want to have transcriptions in a different language in ProdCom, then you can select any language here from this list. On top of that, every channel in ProdCom is language independent, so you'll see you have the same option here in each channel configuration window. So I have Italian downloaded on my computer, so you'll see that I'll select Italian and we don't have any error messages and we're good to go. But if you do select a language and you see this red dialog, it means that the speech assets it needs to run are not available and they need to be downloaded. For help with this, just click on the instructions link and it'll take you to a step-by-step guide for installing these language assets. Back to the settings menu. So you'll see another area for keywords. Any words and phrases that you put in this section are going to apply across the app globally to all transcriptions. So for instance, keywords related to mix changes, you might only put those in your band group because if someone says, I need more or less on radio, it probably has nothing to do with mixes on stage. So some good keywords to enter here might be like your name or audio if you're an audio engineer, and even some really scary stuff like not working, crashed, locked up, restart, restarting. You know, things you don't want to hear but will be helpful to know if it's happening. So this covers all of our options and settings. Now if you go back to File, you'll see that you have an option to export a transcript. So if you have a need to compile all the text and timestamps since the app has been open, you can easily export it into a few different formats. Last on the punch list is the Help menu. So you'll see a few things under the Help menu, but the one we'll mention here is Contact Support. If at any point you have questions or run into technical issues with the app, this is going to be your way to quickly get a hold of us at ProdCom. Please include the log files when you send us a message. It really gives us a huge head start in getting you sorted out. We hope you found this helpful. If you still have questions or if you're running into any issues, definitely please reach out to us. The best way to do that is through the app itself. If you go to the Help menu, Contact Support, that actually goes straight to everybody who's involved with the project, and we'll get back to you quickly.